You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. This is your host, Les, and I am just letting you guys know that we are continuing from our part one of the Nightmare on Elm Street episode from last week. So if you guys need to get a little bit of a refresher, just go ahead and listen back, and we will piggyback right off of that episode. So here we go, guys. To piggyback off your piggyback, part one and part two to me are like prequels to 3. Like I know that sounds weird because they I mean that's exactly what they are. But it's almost like 3 is its own standalone film. And you could have put part 1 and part 2 together and made a film leading up to 3. You know, we get our character established, and then the pacing of 3, everything from 3 is just so beautifully done that it makes everything from the first 2 films worth it. Because I'll be honest, I love, like I said, favorite franchise of all time. The first one and the second one, to me, are both, maybe not so much the second one, but they're kind of slow burns a little bit. Just a little bit. But Craven did that on purpose. But, especially in the first one, he did that on purpose. It's a slow burn. That way the payoff is even more worth it at the end. The second one, it's establishing a little bit more about Freddy, but it is its own film in its own right. And then, like you said, we get into 3, and then it's just like, okay, this is taking off. This is getting a little different here. And you get hit with a bunch of stuff in the third film. Freddy's ungodly strong. He's taking the souls of the children. We've got dream warriors. We've got this group of kids that can go into each other's dreams. Oh, that chick from the first movie's back, and she got hot. Not that she was unattractive in the first film, but by the time she gets into the third film, it's like, okay, Heather Langenkamp's got it going on. But no, I agree with you there. Like you look at 3, 4, and 5, you've got an amazing horror trilogy right there.
And even I know some people probably be like, is it amazing? I don't want to shit on 5. It has good ideas. We'll get to it.
I want to shit on 5 just a little bit. But I don't want to shit on 5 because of the movie. I want to shit on 5 because of the producers. Yeah. That movie had a lot of stuff cut from it. A lot of really, there were scenes that were heightened, that were even worse. The motorcycle scene in Dream Child, that was supposed to be a lot more extreme. That scene went on even longer. It showed him merge with the bike even more and in even more gruesome detail. Studio, nope, can't do that, gotta cut it. And they were rushing them so quickly to get this movie out because at this time, they were riding the Freddy train. They wanted to get more money as quickly as possible. And that resulted in the film that killed Freddy. I like 5. I do. 5 gave us a lot of really cool deaths. It gave us some really interesting characters. Just, man.
I don't even know. It came out in a time, and for context sake, for those who may not have grown up in that time, we're talking about a movie that came out during a period where the MPAA was going apeshit over horror films and really putting the restrictions on what was and was not passable. One of the biggest offenders that they struck down, which, in all honesty, I think the timing of it, well, no, because Dream Child came out like right at the, it was 90, was it not? Because it was like right there at the cusp of the 80s.
1989.
So
Dream
pretty
Child
much right there on the, back-to-back adjacent franchise, Friday the 13th, Part 7. If you know any history about that, that is the one movie out of the entire franchise that had so many amazing kills that got butchered by the MPAA. So it almost seems like a movie that has zero blood whatsoever. And there are surviving bits of those kills, but they're not usable to the point that they could reinstate them into the film, which is a shame. My hope is that maybe somewhere out there's some of these surviving bits for Nightmare, and that maybe someone like Shout Factory, or Arrow, whoever wants to take a crack at it, could remaster and slide those bits in. But again, I understand at the time they didn't really preserve the films as I mean, they got better over the decades, because we're not talking the 30s or anything, but still, they didn't preserve them as well as they do today. So I doubt we'll see that. But
it would be interesting if they found the clips. I do know that there are clips that, like you said, may not be completely usable. I know some studios, some like little studios, some indie studios have been using AI to help edit things. Maybe we'll get to a point where they can use AI along with what clips they have and maybe restore that stuff. That would be interesting. But I don't know. 5 is a love-hate thing for me. 4, to me, still not my top film for Nightmare on Elm Street. But 4, to me, has 2 of my favorite deaths in the entire franchise. We have the bug death. You can check in, but you can't check out. Fantastic. Great effects. Practical effects were great in the 80s, and I don't care what anybody says.
Shout out to Kevin Yeager, who did that stuff.
But the best death, I don't care what anybody says, the best death in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 is Wanna Suck Face.
Mm-hmm.
It is a really cool effect. I always thought that the girl was kind of cute back in the day. She's still a very pretty lady, but they kind of go back to what I loved about the first movie. It seems like a horrible accident. She has an asthma attack in class. And this movie did something else that I loved. Freddy got their souls, but Alice got their powers. We're still playing on the Dream Warriors stuff, because all the kids in Part 3, they had their dream abilities. They had their powers. This film, they have their powers. Freddy just owns all of them. And Alice gets their powers, and she goes up against him. And it has one of the coolest effects at the end when everybody's ripping their way out of Freddy, which I watched an interview with him. It's going to be on the new documentary. He talked about his parents, Robert Englund did, and he said his mom passed away pretty early on into the Freddy stuff, so she didn't get to see a lot of his success. His father got to see a decent amount of his success. Well, out of all the days that his dad could have come to visit him, he come to visit him on the day where Robert Englund is basically glued to a wall with little animatronic arms and everything reaching out of him. And he says, my dad could have visited me on any day, but he visited me on a day where I was really trying to be a quote-unquote artist, and I was in that situation. He said, in hindsight, I'm okay that it happened. He's like, but he could have picked a better day. And, that effect was done in 2 ways. They had the close-up on Englund, and then they built this huge Freddy chest, and they just had actors going up through it. And there's a scene in the movie where there's a woman's soul, and it comes up, and you see her boobs and everything. And I'm just like, I bet all the guys behind there that day on set were probably a little excited to be working with her.
Oh, yeah. In fact, now that you mention that, I wanna double check before I speak, but I'm almost positive I know who that was, because there was a fuss about it. Well, not a fuss. Interesting little trivia bit that it was a well-established scream queen that was doing that bit. But again, let me confirm before I commit to this, because it could be one of those things that I've heard time and again, and it could be a lie, and you know how the internet likes to lie about shit. But I'm almost positive I've heard this to be true. But as I'm looking that up, I'm going to talk about Mike. So this may be controversial. It may be on point. I don't know. But I think 4 I would consider my favorite. And I think because this was the first Freddy film that I ever owned. Like, I found the VHS at a Walmart. It was affordable somehow. And I was just like, yep, I want that. And I got it, and I watched it so much. I understand that there are some moments in there, like the fight, the kung fu fight with Rick was not what it was supposed to be. I get it, but there's just so much of that movie, like just the stuff that you mentioned, like the bug, the suck face. The cast was on point. Shout out to come on, let me think of her name. what's her name? Lisa Wilcox, Jesus Christ, who played Alice. You know, she just did a wonderful job. I think she was a fantastic actress for that. Yeah. Haha, I'm right. Linnea Quigley. You may know her from movies like Return of the Living Dead and Demons, I think, or Night of the Demons, excuse me. Yeah, she was the busty person coming out of the chest. So that is on the IMDb. I got proof.
Like a bust coming out of a bust. I love it.
Now, and I want to say this with absolute, I'm trying not to be negative, okay? Not trying to be negative. One of my only complaints about 4, Rennie Harlan, he directed it. You may know him from, like, he did, I think, The Long Kiss Goodbye. He did Deep Blue Sea, which I think is pretty good.
It is a great film, actually.
They cast for Kristen, which was replacing Patricia Arquette, who did an amazing job. I guess she didn't want to be typecast, but I kind of feel like, they were killing her off. You could be like, hey, you're dying in this. Just take the cameo, money and shove off. Why wouldn't you do that? You're never having to come back again. But True. They cast Tuesday Night, she sings the opening song, fantastic song, love it. She, how do I say this? I don't think she's a good actress. And if you watch how she acts in the movie, I feel like a lot of her stuff is just exaggerated, you know what I mean? Not all the time, but there are just moments where you see her just take her performance just a step too far and just like rein that shit in just a little bit, because you're going up here and you should be down here. And I'm not saying it's the entire movie, but there are just moments that I catch these little overacting bits, and I wish they'd have kind of reined her in just a little bit, because she had promised to do well. There are moments where she does do well, but then there are those other moments where you just see her take it to an extreme and it's just like, come back.
Right.
So it's, and I don't want to dismiss her. I don't want to shit on her, because I'm sure the internet has done plenty of that. I think she's fine. I just feel like that there are moments where she could have been reined in a little bit, and that's where I'll put it to Rennie Harlan. You're the director. Get a performance, not this overacting. And if that's what you thought was good, then maybe you need to recheck what you're doing, because it's just a minor gripe. She's fine. It's just a minor gripe.
I get it. I mean, I will say this too about 4. It has one of the best ways that Freddy's ever been brought back.
That's one of my absolute favorite things. And
the whole effect is just great. And in a way, like, I love and I hate how quickly Freddy takes out the survivors from part 3. Like, I wish Kincaid would have been around a little bit longer.
He's a great character too.
And I love, that's when we get the really cool silhouette of Freddy in the junkyard. And when you get to hell, tell him Freddy sent you. Like, come on. How's this for a wet dream? It's great. That whole scene I absolutely love, when Freddy's in the waterbed as the Playboy model and everything. And I love how he uses basically the same tactic on the same kid, because in part 3, he disguises himself as the nurse, gets a little intimate, and then, spits the tongues out, ties him to the bed and everything. It's like, okay, using the same tactic to take him down. I love it. 4 is, I won't say that 4 is my favorite, because I have a hard time picking my favorites with this, and I know they change a lot. 4 is probably one that if I was going to pop one in to watch, to where I could, do something in the background and come back and just enjoy the moment that I'm watching, I don't need any context. 4 would probably be the one. I even love the scene where she's dreaming. I think it's Alice, if I remember. No, it's not Alice. It's Tuesday Night's character.
Kristen.
Yeah, God, I'm terrible with names today. She's in her happy place, the beach, and the Freddy glove is like a shark fin coming up. It's great. It's simple, but it works. And it gives.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish that.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, that version of Freddy begins to become more comical, but it almost becomes like he's this animated villain, but it oddly works. Like he's enjoying what he's doing. He's enjoying causing the pain and the misery. And I think this is the movie that really make people, like, up until that point, you like Freddy to a degree, but like you still think he's just horrible. But then you get to this movie and it's like, okay, Freddy's got jokes this time around, and it's kind of funny.
You know, I do want to kind of point that out too with 3 and 4, a consistent nature of his evolution, because very much so, like we talked about with 1 and 2, he's more of a villainous presence. You know, he's darker, he's mean, he's not comical. And then with 3 and 4, this is the rock star Freddy. This is where we're getting into that defined version of what he is. So he's still villainous, he's still vicious, but he's popping quips, and they never feel like a step too far. You know, they feel like they're on point with everything going on, but he still feels menacing. You still have this fear. Yeah. And I feel like both Chuck Russell and Rennie Harlan knew that line. They were like, all right, don't take him too far. Keep him right here. But this jokey Freddy, that's good, but not keep that menace. And they nailed that.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's when we get to the last 2 is where it took him overboard. And I think that's what hurt a lot of the last 2 entries of the main series. We'll say that because I'm sure we'll talk about New Nightmare, but within the main series, you know.
Yeah. No, overall, 4, like 3 is wonderful. I can see why people consider 3 to be like the best. But 4 just took everything that we loved about the character already and just perfected it, I think. And yes, 4 does have its flaws. Every movie has its flaws to a degree. But I don't think any of that really takes away from just enjoying the movie. You know, I don't know. I could gush about 4 all day, but do we really need to talk about 5 a lot?
Well, no, but I do. Before we step away from 4, I just want to mention this one little line.
Yeah, of course.
I'm aware it's probably very sexist and a terrible thing to say to anybody, and I don't know why it makes me laugh. But there's one line in this movie that cracks me up every time, and it's toward the beginning. They're at the high school, and what's her name? The one who had the suck face death.
Oh, yeah.
Her name's right there. I know it, and I just
can't.
I can't knock it out of my head.
I hate when this happens to me.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
This is
Jeopardy
why
music.
We have the Google. Where you at?
I'll know it when I see it. If I see it. Sheila. Jesus. Anyway, Sheila and Debbie are talking about soaps or something like that. And she takes a hit off of her inhaler, and this jock comes up out of nowhere. He's just like, hey, baby, you're sucking on the wrong nozzle. It's how he says it that I think just cracks me up. Again, I'm not condoning it. It just, how it's said, and I don't know. I'm not condoning it.
That was before everybody was so sensitive about that stuff, though.
But he got his. You can't, Debbie fired back, so,
Yeah,
saying.
I mean.
Again, not condoning it, I'm just saying. Anyway, 5. No, we kind of already went over it, and it's a shame that it got butchered.
Man, 5's not bad.
It has interesting concepts.
We get Super Freddy. We get the comic book death in that, where he turns him into the comic strip. He turns him into the paper and he cuts him up. I love that scene, but I also, after that happened, I thought about it. Freddy cuts you in the dream world. He cuts you in the real world. Like, that happens. Can you imagine the scene in the real world? How horrible that would have been.
We never saw the aftermath of that.
No. And I think about that still to this day, and I'm like, I took a scene from 5. That's how I told you and Trina what we were having, our baby. It's a boy. There were a lot of concepts in that movie that would have worked really well if they wouldn't have been just attacked by the producers. It's a good movie. I'm not going to say that it's not. I don't remember it as well as the other ones, though, because it has the same issue that we talked about before we even got onto the subject. It's rushed.
I mean, it was, I think they said it came out, less than a year after the last one, Dream Master. So, yeah, that's a rush production 100%. And I even feel like it shows on the makeup with Freddy, because you take a look at what Kevin Yeager did in 4, and then you see what they did in 5, and that's not his work. If it is, then he did a slap job, and I don't think it's the same people, because that is a completely different makeup. He doesn't look right, at least to me. You know what I mean? 5 and 6, the makeup job on Freddy just, I don't know, man. It's not doing it for me, and it's disappointing.
No, I think a combination of 3 and 4, if they were to put those together, and maybe just a touch of the darkness that they used for 2, and we would have the perfect looking Freddy. But I get where you're coming from. It just doesn't look quite right.
Yeah, there's just something off of it, and it just, especially when you see some of the details that they put into the previous makeup, even going back to the original, there was something about it. It wasn't quite there with the more iconic version, but it still had something about it that just looked very Freddy. This just almost seems like a mask. Like they just applied it and said, well, fuck it, he's got makeup.
Yeah, like I said, Robert Englund's performance in the movie, still great. He commits. You still love what Freddy does. The deaths are nowhere near where they need to be. They're still good, but, I mean, even the scene where he's, I'm terrible with names today, where he's feeding the girl till she gets... He was supposed to feed her own intestines in that scene.
Greta.
Like, it was supposed to be a lot worse than what it was. Would that have made the film better? I think so. Would it have been better if they would have kept in all the stuff that they cut out? Probably. We'll never know, unfortunately. Lisa Wilcox comes back, and Alice is a fantastic character. She kicks ass again. They add in the element of her being a mother and wanting to protect her child. Meeting her future kid was kind of weird to me. That threw me off a little bit.
But you have to really get, the concept is great. I honestly thought, especially considering what they did with Alice in the last one, she is now the gatekeeper. She has locked him away. And then pregnancy is what, come on. That was a fucking clever idea, because he just found a loophole. He's like, oh shit, her baby dream. I can just weasel my way out that way. And it was like, yes, that is perfect. That is a great idea. Now, executions...
And it brings back the element... It brings back the element of part 2. Sorry, I had to say that real quick. Freddy's bleeding into the real world. And to me, it felt like... Especially the scene where she sees in her womb and she sees Freddy's face there, and they're feeding the souls to her son in her womb, and you're like, Freddy's gonna take this kid. He's gonna use this kid to return. It's a great concept, for sure. And I completely I completely agree. Fantastic concept. Just the execution could have definitely been better.
Like every other movie we see around this time, there are great ideas that just don't get executed the way they should have. So as we're sitting here talking, I wanted to see who did the makeup effects in 5, and talk about disappointing, man. K and B, fucking Greg Nicotero and his bunch were the ones that did that. So they really must have been rushed, because that is a shame. Now, granted, I don't know if that really goes to them specifically, because obviously there are a lot of makeup artists on this list, but their names are in there, so they may not have had anything directly responsible, because there is one that says makeup artist Robert Englund, so maybe it was just that I don't know. But K&B, this was not Yeager's work, so that's shocking, especially considering where they are now. So I'm surprised. Anyway, but yeah.
5, I don't have much to say about. Like I said, we've talked about it, and going off of 5 actually sort of puts me into a movie that I would consider sort of a guilty pleasure of mine, because it's not the best one by any means. I do find some joy in certain aspects of it, and that's Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, the movie where they knew it was their last film, or they thought it was going to be their last film, and they just went nuts with it. Freddy was a living Looney Tune. There's a scene in it where one of the victims is falling, and he pushes a bed of nails down like Bugs Bunny would do in an old Looney Tunes cartoon.
I think at that point they were just 100% like, you know what? We've already gone this far. Let's just take it to the because it's the last one. Who the hell cares? And they just went for it, and for good or for ill, I don't really know what to say. I'm sure there are people out there that love it. There are, again, good ideas. I liked kind of playing with his past, getting to understand that. Him having a daughter, I don't know. There's something about that just feels off. You know, he doesn't seem like the type. But again, it's a good cover. You know, being a family man, no one paying any mind.
I do like the thought of, you know, there was a time where Freddy tried to be a good person, and the evil just sort of had to come out of him. I guess there's something about that I kind of enjoy. The whole past thing. Fun fact: Alice Cooper is Freddy's dad.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows. A lot of people they overlook that, but yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed the aspect of him maybe being a family man. I was with you though in the regard of it did really like throw me off to a degree. I kind of just saw him as like if he was the guy that lived on my block, he'd be the guy that lived by himself. That you maybe thought like his wife, like he might have been married at one point in time and his wife died, or you're not sure exactly what his story is. Kind of sticks to himself. Like that's what I always thought when I thought
and even but not to really bring this one up, but kind of what they did with the remake, where he was like a groundskeeper or something like that. Again, he was a loner. He just kind of kept to himself. That's how I kind of perceived who this man was prior. But adding that family element, I don't feel was necessary. But again, for the purpose of the story, was to, I don't know, figure out a way to stop him for good, even though I don't feel like that. Him having a daughter didn't matter because Nancy did the same shit. She yanked him out. You know, it was, we've seen the concept. It was nothing new.
I think if they would have played on it a little bit different, and maybe I'm just getting like bigger picture here again, but you know, maybe they could have done something where they found some kind of loophole where Freddy could only die by the blood of his own family. Or something like that, you know. Maybe it took his own blood to stop him. You know,
it's like some, I don't know. Jason Goes to Hell stuff.
Yeah, you know. I mean, it's a weird gimmick, but it makes a little more sense to a degree. You know, instead of just pulling him out and blowing him up with a pipe bomb, which is something that's happened. You know, maybe not in that regard, but something that has happened. He's been pulled out how many times?
Exactly,
you know,
So the concept didn't feel new outside of 3D. I think that was the gimmick that was the biggest selling point at the time, because not a lot of people were doing 3D movies at the time. I think the format had kind of ran its course back in the early 80s, and suddenly New Line was like, well, we need a gimmick here, 3D. And they incorporated the shit out of that in the movie, which is so weird to watch without 3D.
Yeah. I will give the movie credit because it's given people who like the comedy aspect of Freddy most of the funny things that they bring up. Because when I'm at a convention and I hear people talking about funny things from Nightmare on Elm Street, I normally hear, you know, certain lines like, you forgot the power glove, and, you know, stuff like that. You know, even the map, when the kid's in the back of the van pulling the map open and the map just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and in the center of the map it says you're fucked. It's stupid, it's cheesy, but that's exactly what they were doing. They were like, we're just going to make the cheesiest movie. I mean, even the scene with Roseanne in it. People forget she was in it, and I can't think of the guy Tom Arnold. You know, she's looking at the kids like, you can come to my house, I'll feed you. Like, she's trying to get these kids to go with her because she misses her kids. And, you know, Tom Arnold comes over and he's like, you know what happens when kids come? He comes for them. And, you know, like making this whole thing. And it's like, really? Like, okay, this is really out there.
That was a fun concept too, because I almost feel like if you could have played on that, maybe rein it back in a little bit, that idea plays into where they went with Freddy versus Jason, where they had quarantined that whole fucking town, and that made so much sense to me. So if they could have reworked that or played with that to where it wasn't like all of Springwood had turned into a ghost town, which I guess to a degree I could see working, but keeping it mum made more sense to me. It was just like, no, we've had enough of this shit. Don't.
Oh, you mentioned somebody named Freddy. We're sending you to the mental hospital. Here you go.
Know, just zip it.
Like, yeah.
So yeah, it felt like an extreme version of what they should have done, but it was a good idea.
Yeah, and honestly, I will say too, I enjoyed the deaths in it. I loved the whole video game be like me when he's, I thought that was funny. The scene where the girl gets put back into, her home where she was abused as a child, and she beats the shit out of her dad or whatever with the toaster, and he looks up and his face is all like mushed in different directions, but he starts talking. And I love the part where she's got Freddy's arm behind his back and it's like a weed eater and it turns or it spins. It's dumb, but it works. And he cuts his fingers off. He's like, first they tried burning me, and he cuts his fingers, and then he's got his middle finger up and he's laughing about it, and he's like, but I just keep on ticking, and all of his hands are. Here I am doing my horrible Freddy impression. But, that movie actually has Robert Englund's favorite death of all time in Nightmare on Elm Street. He loves the scene with the chalkboard, where he stretches the chalkboard, starts scraping it, his head explodes. Yeah. That's his favorite death. It's a great scene. The chalkboard scene, I love that. I love when he walks up and he's like over-expressing with what he's doing. He stretches it the first time, he's like, oh, and then he does it again, he's like, oh, and then he starts scraping it. It worked. Yeah. Like, it's, by all means, it should be a movie that a lot of people probably shouldn't enjoy, but you can still enjoy it. And again, you can enjoy it because of Robert Englund, because of his version of Freddy. They went ahead and they were like, Freddy's dead. This is the nail in the coffin. We're doing it. Love it or hate it, they did it. And Freddy, again, in this movie, looks a lot different. Really not the best look, but to me, they make him look more animated in this film. He looks like a cartoon character who came out into the real world, and the ink and everything didn't quite transfer like it should have. Sure. Like, that's what I think of. And it's very Looney Tune-esque, if that's a word.
Yeah, but it's on point.
I like it for what it is. It is by no means my favorite film. The next film we will talk about is actually probably the one I will consider probably my favorite. And I know it's between it and 3. 4 and like they're tied. Yeah. But do you have anything before we get into that?
No, I mean you
might have
basically hit the nail on the head. I mean the one thing to keep in mind is, even as we're saying it's not the best, they're not unwatchable. There are some movies out there in franchises that I would consider unwatchable because I just don't want to see it. There's just something about it that's just turns me off. Like you reject it. None of the Freddy movies feel that way to me. Even if they are the weakest entry on the totem pole, it's still watchable. It's still enjoyable in some way. And that's the beauty of it for me, because I can admit when it's faulty, but I still love it. I still can watch it. And I never would. I can tell you that I've watched every single one of them multiple times, and it's never gotten old. Find new things to appreciate.
That's the beauty of it. You can watch it way down the line, and it's still fantastic.
And then there are some movies that you're just like, fuck this movie. I'm never watching this shit again. There's not one Freddy movie in the original run that I can say that about. I'll leave it at that, because we're not talking about a remake. Anyway.
Yeah, we won't touch on that one. No, then we got the gift of Wes Craven coming back, and we got New Nightmare, which is I don't even know how to describe it.
I will say this real quick about it. I think it's a movie that took a long time to get appreciated, because when I saw it, I won't say that I disliked it, or because I remember having it on a VHS tape. Like, I recorded it off a cable channel. I watched it numerous times. The first time I watched it, I didn't know how to feel about it, because it was so different. It was so unique. And I kept coming back to it. And the one thing that I will say to anybody is, if you always find yourself drawn to want to revisit a movie, then it's got you in its hooks. Hands down. You never question that ever again. If you want to rewatch it, it's got its hooks in you. And that was a movie that had its hooks in me. And I've grown to appreciate it so much more over the years, to the point where, as you were clearly going to say, this is probably one of your favorites, if not the favorite, out of the whole bunch. And it is so mind-boggling, because it did meta long before meta, in all the best ways.
That's what I was looking for, meta. That this film came out at a time, people were still wanting Nightmare on Elm Street, and Wes Craven went, you know what? What if so many people loved something that it somehow got brought into reality? You know, Heather Langenkamp playing herself in this movie. All of these actors playing themselves in this film was the first thing that just threw me off, but threw me off in a good way. Like, we're going to have Nancy fighting Freddy like old times. It'll be normal. No, not by any means. We are following Heather Langenkamp as she is living her life in California, going through the things that she was really going through at the time. You know, she gets a phone call from a stalker. She was really getting phone calls from a stalker around that time. She was figuring out what her next step was going to be after all of the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. Nightmare on Elm Street was still extremely prominent. People were wanting more films. But to take an ancient evil, as Wes Craven is so well at doing, real evils in the world, and wanting that, and having that evil basically needing to take a form, and its form that it's chosen being Freddy. I never in a million years would have thought of something like that. Ever. And as we progress through the film, this thing is attaching itself to her son. It's attaching itself to the people around her. And Wes Craven, you know, she goes to Wes, and Wes tells her she's going to have to be Nancy one more time. And as we see this change through the film happen, and we see this version of Freddy, it's not Freddy. It's posing as Freddy, but it's not Freddy. Yeah. It's this dark, demented, evil thing. And for me, that's the thing. Like, we went from Freddy's dead to this version of Freddy that is just horrible, horrible. And everyone around her is seeing her as Nancy again. John Saxon starts calling her Nancy again. Nancy. And she's a mother. The element that was great about Dream Child, a mother protecting their child. Heather Langenkamp has to accept being Nancy one last time to take down Freddy. But this time, it's not a movie. This time, it's real. I don't know what else I could say. Just saying it gives me goosebumps, because Wes took a concept that nobody thought would probably work, and he turned it into that. And, you know, even at the end, we only get one little glimpse of what this thing actually is at the end. It's right when it dies. We legitimately think it's Freddy. But when you like stop and you step back and you think about it, you're like, this isn't Freddy. This is something much worse. It's choosing Freddy as its form. Like, there's a power to that. And I don't care what anybody says. If you watched this movie once before and you didn't like it, go back, watch the films, then watch this movie again. Because there is so much to appreciate. Wes Craven made Freddy scary again. And you think about it, you really think about it, the Nightmare on Elm Street films that have done the best, that most people talk about, Part 1, Part 3, and New Nightmare. And what do all three of those films have in common? Wes Craven. The man knew what he was doing with this character, with this story arc. I think after they did everything they did with Freddy's Dead and everything, he just had to come up with something else to do with New Nightmare. And New Nightmare is such a trip, because you're watching a movie where it's actors as themselves melding into the fictional characters that they played in previous movies. And to see Robert Englund painting the picture and talking about having nightmares about Freddy and it being a darker Freddy, that's creepy. That's just creepy on its own. Sure, yeah. So, and it mirrors Heather Langenkamp's life in a lot of real ways, like the special effects makeup and everything. That's what her husband does. Her husband, that's not her real husband in the movie, but that's what her husband does for a living. They run a special effects company. They do special effects for all kinds of things. They've done it for the newer Star Trek movies. They've done it for American Horror Story, all kinds of things. I find it
funny, not to go off just on a slight little tangent, but
no, go ahead.
I find it funny that I can think of at least two, and there's got to be more, two actresses that were in horror movies that fell in love and married an effects artist. Heather Langenkamp is one, and shit, I should have just tried to remember her name before I brought this up, because I see her face clear as day, and I thought it was going to come to me. Catherine. I know her name is Catherine. Fucking hell, why can't I think of somebody's name on the fly? Why Catherine Hicks, Jesus Christ, who played the mom in Child's Play. She married Kevin Yeager because they met on Child's Play. So,
now, another random thing real quick for you. Look up, if you get the chance, Heather Langenkamp in Star Trek, because her husband did the special effects for one of the Star Trek films, and she actually was in one of them, but you wouldn't recognize her at all.
All right, I'm going to do that right now.
I'm gonna let you do that real quick, and then I want your opinions on New Nightmare, and we'll very briefly talk about one other thing because I don't actually think we need to talk about.
There's no way. Yeah,
it's probably
no way you could tell that was her.
It's probably is her husband with her in the picture?
There's one picture.
There is a picture.
But
yeah, big old green alien head.
Jesus Christ, that is awesome.
Pretty cool.
New Nightmare is. I remember when that movie came out because I'm almost positive it came out. It was in '94. I think it was around my birthday that year, and I didn't get to see it until much later. The very first instance that I even knew that it was coming is I saw a trailer for it. I think when I was watching, I think it was Man's Best Friend. I think that was a New Line release as well. And they had a trailer for The Mask, ironically, and New Nightmare. And the way the trailer played out that first time, I didn't know what the hell was going on. Because I don't think in that very first trailer, they showed Freddy at all. It almost seemed like it was all in her head. And then Freddy was like at the ass end of the trailer, where he just shows up, says, "Miss me," and then they cut the screen out. So you're like, oh shit, because you barely get a shot of him, but you see the new makeup, you see the new look, and you're just like, oh, okay. So I didn't know what to think of it. And then I read reviews that were talking about how it was just doing this something. So it sounded unique. Then I finally saw it and I was like, whoa, my brain couldn't wrap my head around it at first because it was a great concept, but I didn't know how to take it. It was all new. But like I said, it had its hooks in me. I came back, I recorded it, I got to play it on a rewatch, and I grew to appreciate the hell out of this movie for very much a lot of the same reasons you did. There was a lot of factual things going on, how they interwove fact to fiction, and just made it work on so many levels where everybody was being kind of tormented by this thing in different ways too. Not everybody was having the same experience, but it was like it was solely after Heather. And then, of course, Miko Hughes doing, as Dylan, her son. And, I mean, great kid actor he was. If you do...
Also in
that's
Pet
what
Sematary.
I was about to say, yeah. I mean, go back to his original days, man. It was the poor-ass little kid who got flattened by that fucking semi.
Too, it's like, I love in the movie that Heather Langenkamp is reading Wes Craven's script. And it's a movie about real life becoming a movie. Taking over real life. It was like Inception before Inception.
And I think I think what really makes it work on so many levels for me personally is nothing about. It's almost like Wes found a way to make sure that how it's presented, how the film was presented, felt very real without doing like this is pre. Shaky cam bullshit where everybody's like, oh, well, we got it. Because I guarantee you that if a concept like this, like if that had never been done and they did it today, you would have like the documentary style office kind of concept where everything's just, that's how it would have been presented. But however West does it in this film, everything feels very realistic in how it's presented. Yeah. Nothing, how California's presented and just the locations. And then when it needs to become more dreamlike and less realistic, it'll take that approach. But for the most part, everything feels so grounded in reality that I think that's what makes it more terrifying, because you see this darkness seeping into what feels, it looks and feels nothing like all the other movies for good reason. And it works because of that. Getting to see New Line Cinema and going in there and seeing Bob Shea, it's just like, what the fuck are we doing here? But it works. And
no, I agree with you 100%.
If you're one of the people who maybe don't like this movie, or maybe your first rewatch or your first watch was you were like, give it another shot, man. Really, really sink into it. Now, I'm not going to tell people that, if you've already made up your mind about it, fine. I've just dealt with so much negative shit. Like I'm not even going to call out names, but some people who might listen to this will know exactly what I'm talking about. I contributed to a podcast called Podcasters Assemble. We've been going over the Indiana Jones movies, and I never knew how much people hated Temple of Doom until I listened to that. Like, I'd heard shit online, but there was this one guy, and he was just tearing the movie apart, and I'm like, I can't wrap my head around it, Now, granted, I've probably done the same when we talk about Halloween Resurrection. Won't give that movie a time of day, but People out there love it, and I'm going to give it to them. That's their business. They love it. Good on them.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ, man. I guess I'm tired of ripping things apart, and I don't want to be that guy. So if that's what you want to be, go ahead. But I'm going to give love where it's due, and I'll reserve my criticisms wherever, because people love different things. But I think this is a solid entry.
Oh, definitely. Now, I don't want to touch too far on this because we're coming in over 2 hours right at the moment. Another solid thing I want to say people should watch is Freddy's Nightmares. You can watch it on Tubi. It's a series about Freddy. I'll leave it at that. Love it or hate it, it has its weaknesses and its strengths. I love it. I'm sure you've probably seen some of it. It's fantastic. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say on that one. And I'm not really going to count Freddy versus Jason.
That's a topic for another day.
Yeah, it's like its own thing. And I'm really glad that you brought up Indiana Jones, because I'm just going to say this. I'm going to put this out here. Robert Englund is saying that he's done as Freddy because arthritis, he's a little too thick to play Freddy now, things like that. He says he could only probably do one action scene, like one take for each action scene he would have to do. I'm just going to say this because I want to put this out there. We live in a world where an 80-year-old Harrison Ford can play Indiana Jones again, where there are stunt doubles and there are people who can do all of the action, and you can superimpose another person's face.
It's getting better by the day.
Body. I know someone right now who, if you put makeup on them and made it resemble Robert Englund's Freddy, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They are that committed. They are that good. I'm not saying Robert has to play Freddy again, but I think his version of Freddy could still exist. They could pull it off for one more film. They could put the energy into it. They could make it happen. I really think they could even bring him on just as an advisor to help a new actor. Maybe have him do a little bit of voice acting. At the most, maybe put him in makeup one more time, let him do a few scenes. I think it can be done. And I am one of those people who is kind of a snob about it. And I think the reason a movie has not landed is because Robert made Freddy so iconic. You can't just slap another actor in there. You have to replace Freddy. And it's not just replacing
Part 2
Robert.
is the prime example.
Exactly. You know, at this point in time, it's not even about me ever getting the movie that I would love to get made. It's just me putting my opinion out there. I think they should do a movie with Robert's version of Freddy. Even if they have to do CGI and work some magic, they could do it. They would make a buttload of money off of it, which is what they're worried about. They would have to put money in, but they would make a lot of money off of it. And I think instead of picking these actors that are not much younger than Robert Englund, like Kevin Bacon, he's in his 60s. Even some of these 50-year-old actors, pick someone who's not known. That way nobody knows anything. Oh, well, they're going to make Kevin Bacon Freddy. He's been in this, and this. Are you sure he's got the chops? I don't want to hear that. I want a nobody. I want somebody that nobody's ever heard of, or who has been in very few films, or films that are not very well known. I want them to step in and be like, okay, this newcomer might have something to offer. But Robert Englund did his job good. He did it so good that it's hard to replace
for
him.
the new actor who would ever get tapped to do that, I 100% agree with you. I think you need to go with a unknown, because as we've heard, whether Kevin Bacon or I think I showed you Devon Sawa was another one that was saying, oh, I'd love to do that. Of course you would. Who wouldn't? Richard Brake was another one that I heard someone pitch out, which, again, great choice, but let's rein that shit in. Like you said, go younger, go unknown, and whoever that person is, make that role your own. Don't try to emulate Robert. Like, there are things that are very Freddy, but make it your own. Find your own voice in creating that. Find the elements, the essence of Freddy that Robert really infused with it, and then make it your own. Because I'll at least give credit to Jackie Earle Haley for his performance. The movie was not his fault. I think he did a fine job with the material he was given. He was trying to... He tried to make it his own. He wasn't a very quippy Freddy. He did a few, but he was more menacing than jokey. So he was trying to go back to the early days. So if a new actor could find a balance to where he could do both, but again, find your voice. Find it on your own. Don't try to emulate him. Make it your own. People are going to hate it. I guarantee you from the start they'll hate it, but over time they'll appreciate it and they'll grow to love you.
Yep. It's going to be like ripping off a Band-Aid, no matter what. It's going to suck. but it has to happen. And whether they just reboot it or they take the chance, they use CGI, they use other things to give Robert Englund's Freddy one last story, let him pass the torch down, as it were. Whatever they do, I hope they do it the right way. And I'm just going to say this again. I don't know if Robert Englund will hear this show, but if he does hear the show, I just want him to know we're big fans. I would love the opportunity to have him on the show. I would probably die, to tell you the truth. I don't get I go to conventions and stuff, I don't get starstruck, but every time I meet him, I mean, I shake. There's just something about him. So, you're an icon to us, Robert Englund. I hope you know that. And I don't have anything else. If you don't have anything else, if you want to tell the people where to find us, I think we summed it up pretty well. We could probably do a part 2, and I could probably talk about these movies more. Oh, yeah. But everybody that's not drunk or dead of alcohol poisoning, listen.
I think we should have just prefaced the entire episode by saying don't play the game with this one. Just forego this one, for Christ's sake. Do yourself a favor. But Ramblers out there, let us know how you feel about the Nightmare franchise. Better yet, tell us what you think of Robert Englund. Shower him with love right now, because the man is suffering through COVID and we want him to get well. I know that it's not as bad as it has been in the past, but still, you never know. It affects people differently, so get well, Mr. Englund. We love you so much. If you've got more to say, tweet's just not going to cut it. Send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. Write us a big letter that you want us to forward to Robert, and we'll try that. I doubt we'll figure that out, but you never know. We got connections that might have connections. If you want to discuss horror with like-minded individuals, you can join our Facebook group or join us in our Ramblers room on Discord. You can find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images, all the Freddy posters I'm sure you're seeing this week. If you're feeling generous and want to support the show financially, head on over to patreon.com/pencil and paper productions to chuck in a buck. Help the show grow by leaving a review on your favorite podcasting app, because that 5-star review does wonders to get us seen out there in the world. Tell your friends to find us on their favorite podcasting app. And if you happen to be using Spotify, see if we've posted any questions or polls and let us know what you think over there. And finally, if you prefer a central hub with all things, go to pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, don't fall asleep.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.